imperfection is that road to connection. And vulnerability, that's what it means. You got to be imperfect. You got to share what's going on. And that imperfection is when we start looking at each other as people. We're not painting this perfect picture or putting up this facade of we got everything figured out. Because nobody wants to be friends with somebody like that. And so when we talked about vulnerability with these mentors and the kids, it was, hey guys, look, you have the same story. And so they'd fill out this form that required you to share bits and pieces of your story, and that's how we partnered them up.
Cool.
How willing are you to be vulnerable? How willing are you to share your story to create hope for somebody else?
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I am your host and coach, Tyler Johnson. And whether you've tuned in to elevate your mindset, your game, or just your day, you are in the right place. My guest this episode is a former Division I football player who started TeleHope because everyone should be heard, and many, even on sports teams, feel left alone, isolated, hurt, or even misunderstood. With a strong desire to create more connected communities and teams, please welcome to the Elev8 podcast, Ralph Fuaz.
Good, Tyler. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you. Being a guy that played college football as well, always good to have another former college football player on here, and got a chance to see you speak as part of an event, and wanted to have you on because I thought the work that you're doing was so cool. But I would love for you to start kind of share with the audience a little bit, just kind of a little bit about your sports journey and what led you into the work you're doing now.
Yeah, thank you. And so started off in Oklahoma, and I was a big time soccer player. I only wanted to play soccer. I didn't want to do anything with football. And sophomore year comes around, football coach, of course, they need a kicker. They call on, one of the kids who's playing soccer. It ended up being me. And I only kicked originally. I don't want to punt or do anything.
Okay.
And so my junior year, our punter gets into some trouble, blah, blah, blah. I end up being the punter for the last 2 years, my junior and senior year. And long story short, I wanted to go play soccer in college. That wasn't going to happen. I decided let me go a different route. And so I had 13 Division I offers. Only one was for punting, and that was for Wyoming.
Okay.
So then I come up to Wyoming. I take this one. It was a walk-on offer. My second year here, I ended up starting. Well, I was talking back to a few of the coaches, didn't get along with them very much, and I got benched as soon as my season was over. And then as I'm sitting in the locker room, I was deciding, can I transfer? Should I leave? I go to a few different places. We ended up that season that I played, we started off 4-0 and then we went 4-4. And you could just tell around the locker room, everybody had just lost that hope. But our fans, the kids in the high school and all these different kids that would come and watch us, they thought we were something special. They thought we were superstars. And I'm in this locker room with grown men crying because we lost a football game.
Yeah.
And that moment, middle of my sophomore year when I was playing, I realized we got to do something. And so after I got benched, I had a lot more free time, especially as a punter. And so I ended up starting TeleHope, and it started off as a student athlete mentorship program where we partnered up our student athletes who thought they were something special with the kids who thought we were something special to show them, hey, we got the same story you do. We just worked a little bit harder. We got lucky with recruiting, but we're the same. We come from the same place. And so we ended up with 42 guys helping out, and we had 42 kids, and it was great. We tried to create this hope, and that was my junior year because I didn't have much else to do. And shortly after that, about a year and a half, I realized maybe this mentorship isn't the best way to do it because guys on the football team are leaving the locker room without having made any friends.
Mm.
Guys in the high school are leaving high school, they're leaving their teams having not made any friends. And so we restructured TeleHope to where now what we do is these interactive workshops to create confidence to go out there and create your own communities. Because it's not necessarily about this mentorship program and creating hope, but how can we find our communities around us and have the confidence to share our story, to connect, to have these close friends? Because ultimately that's what's going to make us enjoy life and have fun.
Yeah. Wanted to ask you about you made the comment. Well, I've been in one of those locker rooms where we're crying after a football game. But those vulnerable moments. How do you see vulnerability and getting even 42 college kids to go talk to high school kids? There's vulnerability on both sides there. How do you think of that and approach it?
Yeah. And the crying after the games is awesome. If we're doing it alone in our locker, it's not as awesome.
Yeah,
If you got
yeah,
somebody with you saying, "Hey, man, me too. Like this
yeah,
sucked." That's great. That vulnerability can be that point of connection. And that point of connection to me, what we teach at TeleHope is imperfection is that road to connection. And
mm,
vulnerability that's what it means. You got to be imperfect. You got to share what's going on. And that imperfection is when we start looking at each other as people. We're not painting this perfect picture or putting up this facade of we got everything figured out because nobody wants to be friends with somebody like that. And so when we talked about vulnerability with these mentors and the kids, it was, hey guys, look, you have the same story. And so they'd fill out this form that required you to share bits and pieces of your story. And that's how we partnered them up.
cool.
How willing are you to be vulnerable? How willing are you to share your story to create hope for somebody else? And again, the problem with that was what I realized some people don't have confidence in their story. And I didn't understand why until now, since our restructure. And now we have four different workshops that we do at TeleHope. Our second workshop is all about having confidence in your story. You've worked so hard to get to where you're at. And we look
Yeah.
at these high athletes, keeping it in athletics like Tom Brady. This is a story that doesn't get talked about much, but Tom Brady's first pass was a pick six. It wasn't even like an incompletion or anything. It was a pick six.
Yeah.
But the thing that I think is incredible about Tom Brady and so many of these celebrities or artists that we listen to and watch isn't their ability to work hard or their talent. It's that they're so patient with themselves and they're willing to have that patience with themselves, to talk to themselves in a positive way and to keep going. And in that result, it made them confident in who they are and their story.
Yeah. Kind of touched around it there, but I find self-talk is pretty important, right? And some of that powerful self-talk. And I think you also touched on just right when we have that connection to other people to talk to. But can you talk a little bit about uh, how sometimes bringing those two things kind of together? Mm,
Yeah, the self-talk I think is hard. There's a book that I love. It's called Chatter by Ethan Kross.
mm,
And Dr. Reed talked about this on you guys' podcast too, but how do you talk to yourself? What is that
mm,
self-chatter like?
mm,
And Ethan Kross paints this picture of you need to talk to yourself how you talk to a friend. I think one big point that got missed is some people don't have these close relationships. So
mm,
now, if you don't really know how you talk to a friend, how can you talk to yourself? And that's where I think that vulnerability with yourself and being patient with yourself of, hey, we've worked hard. We've got to this point. We can keep going to another one. And for all of us, we all want success so quickly, especially now with instant
yeah,
gratification. We all want it now. But I think we fail to realize that being patient with ourselves and having our own back is actually the most important step in getting started. It's impossible for all the stuff that you've done, starting this podcast. If you don't believe in yourself to do it or think anybody would join, there's no reason, no matter what your friends would have told you.
yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you being here. Um, Something I wanted to ask you too is I think in you, correct me if I'm wrong, when you were at Wyoming, it was COVID. You experienced that kind of that era, I guess whatever we want to call it.
Yes.
That was definitely unique. I was in the college environment at that same time. Could you talk a little bit about maybe what, as you kind of look back several years now, what kind of going through that was like as a college athlete and maybe how it differed or disrupted from your expectations of the
Yeah.
experience?
So I took my visit to I didn't even take a visit to Wyoming. I took a visit blindly. I just came because I wanted to be a walk-on. I wanted to earn my spot. I wanted to punt. I was tired of kicking. And so when I came up here, uh, so our off season became 10 weeks long. It's usually anywhere from 6 to 8, depending on coaches and staff and how we do. But
Yeah,
it's 10 weeks, as longest offseason Wyoming has ever had, maybe ever in college football.
I remember that.
and it's snowing outside and it's terrible up here. It's minus 30, it feels like. But for us, it was that chance of connection. That's when I made my closest friends. Working out, we have something called Cowboy Tough. It's terrible. But working out with these guys, being side by side with these guys in the cold, and then our season gets canceled.
Mhm.
So then we're all like, maybe we're not worth anything. Like, what are we worth without football? And
Mhm.
for me and my group of friends, the freshmen, when we were in the dorms, it was awesome to be in the dorms because we all had to have each other. We
Mhm.
couldn't go anywhere. You can't see family. You can't be around people. You just had each other. And so while COVID could have been bad, there's an interesting statistic with COVID. For the first 3 months of when COVID happened, suicide rates were the lowest
Mhm.
because everybody was together. We had that
Yeah.
togetherness.
Yeah.
And we all had that same shared feeling of, oh, what's going to happen? What the
Mhm.
what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's so interesting to see like the different dynamics, and I'm curious about yours. But for us at Wyoming, on a football team, we had that togetherness. We had that opportunity to be together. For the first 3 months, everybody had that opportunity to be together. After that, everybody just started separating. What
Yeah.
was it like for you dealing in that college space during COVID?
I think too, and I think I've had experience from different athletes where, yeah, state laws varied. So I don't think that my experience with the team, they got to do some practicing and working out together, but they didn't get it beyond maybe their couple of roommates. They probably, that they were close to, that little roommate pod. Yeah, probably didn't get that. We didn't lacked the ability to create some of that.
Yeah. Did it
And so
affect connection moving forward?
Oh, I believe so. I think, yeah, I think just some of the things and stresses like kids, like what are we? I think we had 40 practices, and I think we had 37. We're like, we're done. Like, what are three more gonna do at this point? Like let's just. I think at that point we went bowling. We were like, let's go.
Let's do
Like,
something else.
but yeah, it was like having two fall camps back to back after you've already had one, and so it was like a lot. But yeah, I think it was harder, and I think especially the younger kids and kids were getting as a coach, it pained me to see kids being isolated in an experience that's supposed to be so freeing. And when you're a college athlete, you're
Yeah,
celebrated. And I think I saw kids missing an experience that I got to have that wasn't disrupted in such a weird, you know,
totally. Yeah,
surprise,
weird timing, huh?
unpredictable way. Um, and then I think the other thing I was going to ask you to kind of on that COVID, obviously that had its disruptors. And I loved how you shared that stat about how the first 3 months, when we were together. Um, but what are some other things that you see as you continue to do this work around college campuses and see athletes and experience what they're experiencing? What are some of the other barriers that you see to creating meaningful human connection? Because as a guy that's about probably 20 years older than you, I see a lot of men still challenged with creating community, feeling connection, not being isolated. Um, and we don't have COVID as an excuse anymore.
I know we don't. And what's interesting to me is sometimes people still use COVID as an excuse. I'm like, all right, guys, COVID was 2 years, but now it's done. Like it's over with. We gotta go back to what it used to be. I think the biggest barrier is going first. I think
Mm,
people are afraid to maybe even admit it that, hey, I want friends. Hey, I want that closer friendship. They're afraid to even send a first text. Why? Everybody wants that closeness and connection. And something that I get a lot, whether it's the kids or adults, it's, well, I have my girlfriend or I have my boyfriend. Like, well, guys, it's not really the same. There are a lot of things that girls don't understand, things that go on with guys. There are a lot of stories that you probably shouldn't share with your girlfriend. That is enjoyment to share with your guy friends. But I do think it's that fear of going first. It's that fear of looking imperfect or having these feelings of being soft. And I was in a workshop the other day and we're doing it with an engineering group, a little tougher group. And one of the guys raised his hands. He was like, well, Ralph, don't you think some of this stuff is soft? And I was
mm,
like, okay, like this is a good question. Yeah, let's all answer this question. And I told them, I said, can we agree that the harder thing to do is usually the tougher thing? They're like, yes. I said, okay, guys, so what's harder to do? To sit in the corner and take away everybody's energy and pout and be quiet? Or is it harder to stand up and tell one of your coworkers, hey, I'm having a rough day? I think I need somebody to talk to. What's harder to do? And everybody
Mm.
says the second one. And
Yeah.
we all just agreed that the harder thing is the tougher thing. So how is the things that we're talking about soft? It's
Mm.
tough to get up and talk to somebody, especially as a grown man. How do you walk up to somebody and tell them, hey, I'm struggling with stuff at home?
Yeah.
The thing that people fail to realize is maybe they are too.
Mm. Yeah.
I think that's why like vets and these higher age groups of suicide is very tough because why are they going to go see a counselor or a therapist who's 20 years younger than them?
Mm.
It might be tough. They're
Yeah.
not going to really understand. Especially having played football and maybe been in the army and seen some crazy things.
Hmm.
How's somebody really going to understand me? Well, that person beside you might understand you the best, but you've never given them a chance because you're
Yeah.
afraid to go first.
Yeah. Really like how you put that question of the softness, because I think, yeah, as I've reflected on hard times, then it's like, then you feel the absence of those soft skills as they've been compartmentalized by some. But I think then it shows us that I think that's what it has shown me in my life experiences too, is when things got hard and I wasn't focused on those things or relationships, I didn't have a balance. And when you don't have that connection and relationship balance, um, I think, I love TeleHope. What made you want it to be TeleHope?
Yeah, so interesting story. So the logo, we have that shooting star. I got it right here. Above that sign of hope.
Hmm.
And so for me, that shooting star was my sign of hope. I once went through a very hard time. Um, it was tough for me. And I go to the mountains and I'm praying to God of God, I need a sign of hope. And I had never seen a shooting star in my life.
Mm.
At the time, I was getting recruited. Recruiting was very hard. Tulsa, the school that I really wanted to go to, ended up offering another kicker. My girlfriend and I at the time had broken up. I had guests on my ACT, and my parents being from Lebanon, the only acceptable thing to do is go be a doctor.
Mm.
So I just felt like I had completely failed. There's some instances with bullying that I didn't really want to talk about, and I had the three closest friends. I had them. But I was like, they expected me to go D1.
Mm.
Everybody expected something out of me. Well, now
Yeah.
I don't have the courage to go and talk to my close friends that I've built. So I drive out there to the mountains, and it's like 2 a.m. I'm looking up, and my God, I need a sign of hope. I've reached my wit's end. I need something. And there's this car passing by, and I'm cursing and I'm pissed at him and I'm telling him I know they tell me not to test you, but I have to. I really have to because I've this is it for me. And so that car passes and I open my eyes and sure enough there's a shooting star right above me and I was like, "Oh God, I was just kidding. It was all a joke. I always trusted you. I always believed in you." And so that shooting star is my sign of hope, but
Mm.
that telescope is there because we're each other's telescopes. Nobody has to be where I was at once to show us there's a sign of hope. We can show each other there's that sign of hope. We can show each other these shooting stars and let each other know, hey, you're not alone. I have your back. I've been through what you've been through. I Instead of saying that you matter or you belong, we can show people. And that's why that telescope is there looking out at that shooting star.
That's great. No, that's a fantastic story. What has brought you the most joy in this work, man? I feel your passion just speaking like
Yeah.
you like
Thank
even through a Zoom setting. I got to see you speak on stage and stuff too, but yeah, your passion is awesome for this, and I think you're going to make a huge difference to a lot of young people. Um, what drives you to do that?
Honestly, Tyler, my faith is a huge component of this. I've been very blessed and fortunate to have what I have around me. But something in the workshops that keeps me going is even something as simple as this. We sometimes have the drastic comments, where somebody will come up to us after and talk to us about suicide or various issues. But some of my favorite ones in our first workshop, we talk about learning somebody's name.
Mhm.
What does that really mean? Does it mean to know Tyler Johnson and that's it, and to call you Tyler? Or does it really mean to know who you are and that you care, you cared about the athletes, that you showed up and you listened attentively to every single speaker at the conference? I saw you. You know, to know that you care that much and to go deeper than just knowing somebody's name. But we had a freshman girl in one of our workshops stand up, go see, because we let them practice after we teach it. And so she stood up and she found another girl. She goes, "Hey, I see you around in the dorms all the time. You look cool. I want to be friends. I'm Michaela." And I was like, this is what we're talking about. And if you need us as the excuse to do it, perfect. But it needs to change because we're not going to be able to see and reach absolutely everybody. But if we can empower some of these kids to go first, when we start seeing the confidence in the students that we talk to, that's what I love. That's when I know, okay, we've done something. Maybe we're not ending suicide necessarily, but if we can end and reduce that perceived loneliness, now we can actually work towards ending suicide together.
Yeah. Um, One of the things, your time in college kind of lined up with the explosion of the portal and the transfer world. Um, and I feel like there's, and youth sports often very more segmented and transient, transactional. High school sports quite often still trying to do values-based high school athletics, and then college sports has been very fragmented with kind of the new landscape. And I think this connectedness is something that we all want on our teams because we know it drives performance, it drives the relationship, it drives a lot of things. Um, how do you see or how can coaches or kids um, create more connectedness on their teams when they maybe feel the rosters are so more transient?
Yeah, I think we mentioned this vulnerability.
Mm,
And I think a big misconception sometimes we had, unfortunately, we had a suicide here happen in Cheyenne. Close baseball team knew them, and coaches get blamed. Staff gets blamed. High school principals get blamed.
mm,
I think the parents that blame them are completely in the wrong. And it's up to the kids.
mm,
It's up to us to make sure these guys are doing okay. It's up to us to reach out and say, hey, you're not practicing like you normally do. And to have some of these hard conversations because coaches, as you know, you have families. You got other things to worry about. You can't worry about 200 kids. You got your own. You got different things that you're focused on. You guys also have to win games or you'll get fired. So it's up to us and these relationships. And I think the coach is empowering the athletes to be there for one another is how we start creating this friendship. The transfer portal has ruined that. Guys come in, they come in for 1 year, they have a good year, they go to another school, they have a good year there. Now they're at a top SEC school, and then they leave. Who's showing up to the wedding? Half of the rosters? No, nobody's coming. You don't know anybody because we were there to only play football. We weren't there to connect. We weren't there to have a good time.
yeah. No, you
And,
go ahead.
and I'm sure you've seen it with your teams.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say I was back in I played in Iowa and was back there about a month ago and was meeting up with like two or three teammates, and they surprised me and had like two or three more guys there, which was so cool. But then we had dinner and chatting, and some of their kids are in high school sports now, and experiencing that as a dad, and yeah, we kind of contemplated like how most of us at that table played for 4 or 5 years together, at transformational time in our lives, and we were like, are the kids that play now ever going to have a dinner like this?
Yeah.
Like, and I think even, you know, you see more transient high school, certain areas where they let them transfer and move around as well. And so, yeah, I've found it, especially working with coaches. What are some things maybe that you've experienced or observed or learned from any great coaches on things they can do to steward an
Yeah.
environment of connectedness?
And real quick, before we get into that, when you met up with these two, three guys, how did you guys keep this connection so strong?
I mean, I guess we were like Facebook became a thing after we were out of college, but
Yeah.
we're in that age group where yeah, Facebook and text message, and I think with this group, one or two of them had passed through Colorado and they're stopping, we hang out and have dinner with their families. And so if we were passing through towns that where we lived, we tried to always, make a little bit of time, whether it was something.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we always were excited to, I think those groups of people, I'm like, if they're within a certain radius, you're going to see them.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And I think that's what we've gotten away from is showing up for each other and making that time. And especially with like the younger athletes, parents are a problem. It's becoming a parent problem because now we're just competing. We're not even there to be a good teammate.
Hmm.
We're not there. And you and I are very competitive guys. We had fun and we
Yeah,
had fun winning, but we won together. And
yeah,
now it's more, hey, you have to start. And honestly, who cares if you don't win?
yeah,
Just do your part,
yeah.
shine. And then we'll go to college and we can do this different stuff. And so I think some of the best coaches are the ones that put an end to that.
Mm,
They're
love
the
it.
ones that mention, hey, I'm going to play the best teammates.
Yeah,
I don't care if you are the best athlete that we have.
yeah,
How are you as a teammate? How do you react in these situations? Because the reality of this, and you know this as well as I do, the mindset is what's going to make you play.
yeah.
My mindset at the time, at the end of my sophomore year, I thought it was something special. I got benched and fully deserving of getting benched.
I like that. I always say it's hard to outplay your own mindset or self-talk.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And if you're talking crap to yourself the whole time you're on the field or talking crap to your teammates or you don't want them to succeed, what's the point of you being on that field?
Yeah.
You know, I shift my mindset when I got benched. If I want to be the bench warmer, the guy in front of me better go to the NFL. This is embarrassing for me. I'm going to support him like he's going to the league.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you had that experience to help create all this great work you're doing. One last question we like to often end with is if I gave you a time machine and sent you to teenage self, uh, 16-year-old Ralph, with kind of the journey you've been on and the work you've seen and been doing, what's something you would want to remind your teenage self?
It's a good question. Mine, my teenage self. I tell myself to never lose hope.
Hmm.
I think at 16 to 24, you go through so many of these instances where you don't know what's going to happen. And I think that uncertainty shakes a few of us. And it makes you think, can I be successful? Can I go out there and accomplish what I want to? Should I change my route because of whatever situation? I think when we choose to do what we want and follow our own goal, it gets hard. You
Hmm.
know it, I'm sure, as well as I do. Of this is getting dicey. I got to make this work. And I think sometimes we lose hope in ourselves.
Hmm.
But to keep that hope, whether it's in ourselves, in our faith, in our friends, in something, to find that hope and keep moving forward, I think is exactly what I would tell myself is it's going to be okay, but don't lose your hope.